Hi, my name is Brad Wolff with JumpVine, and the title of this discussion is You Interviewed Dr. Jekyll, but Hired Mr. Hyde. What can you do in the future to avoid this from happening? Now, this topic is very near and dear to my heart. The reason is that I've been in the recruiting business for over 20 years. I've either seen or heard about literally hundreds of situations where a company made a hire that they believed would be very good, that did not work out, often with disastrous consequences. I myself have made many hires, some of which worked out very poorly, despite believing that I made a really good hire. As a result of this dilemma, I became quite confused and concerned with the topic and decided to start researching it. I basically became obsessed with understanding why this is such a frequent occurrence. As a result of doing this, I read quite a bit of information on the matter. I also spoke with a number of people who are experts in the field. Also, I gave a lot of really intense contemplation on the matter. And basically what I was able to come up with was only two theories to explain why this occurs. The first theory is that the percentage of twins born in the United States is drastically undercounted. And what's happening is people are simply going in and interviewing for a job and then sending their twin in to do the work. Now, the second theory is that knowing what someone is really like from the traditional hiring process is very difficult. Now, being a good scientist, I had to test these theories. So what I did is some research on twin births, identical twin births in the United States. And I consistently saw the figure of 1 in 285. So I became convinced that that was not explaining it. And I settled on theory number 2, which is it's really very difficult to know what someone's like from the traditional hiring process. Now, in this discussion, I am going to answer 5 questions. Question number 1 is, how frequent are bad hires, and how costly are they to organizations? Question number 2 is, why is it so difficult to know what someone is really like from the traditional interview process alone? The third question is, what are some practical steps to take in actually implementing an effective assessment process? The fourth question is, what are some of the common pitfalls that occur in implementing a successful assessment process? And the fifth question is, what are the summary of the benefits to my organization if I implement an effective assessment process? Question number 1 is, how frequent are bad hires and how costly are they? Forbes magazine produced an article in January of 2012 addressing the issues of bad hires. And in the article, it cited a study of 20,000 hires, and it determined that within 18 months, 46% of these people failed. We're talking a flip of a coin. Now, in terms of how costly bad hires are, you can go on the internet and find many articles to calculate this. If you research this, what you'll find is that the estimates that people come up with are anywhere between 50 and 300% of a person's first year salary, depending on the position the person is in. So this is a very costly matter. Question number 2 is, why is it so difficult to know what someone's really like from the traditional hiring process alone? Now, when you look at this, what you'll find is that we need to look at the traditional hiring process to understand what is happening. The traditional hiring process is based on the following premise. Number 1, show me a person that has the skills and experience that I'm looking for. And that person also possesses the attitude and values that I want. And the references check out. If that person meets all 3 of these criteria, that should be a good hire. Makes sense. Thing is, we already know that that model is not accurate almost half the time. Now, what is it that we do when this occurs and we make a hire that doesn't work out that we thought would work out? what we do is say, you know what, I can't explain what happened, but for some reason, it just wasn't the right fit. The interesting thing is, I've never heard someone that used a word different than fit. When you look at fit closer, though, what you'll find is, to a great extent, fit is nothing more than a catch-all term to explain this mystery that people couldn't identify in the interview. When we look deeper at fit, what we find is that, to a great extent, fit is nothing more than the innate capabilities and characteristics that are really part of the person's makeup, and they directly determine whether or not the person can effectively do a specific job in a specific environment or not. So fit is really no more mysterious than skills and experience or attitude and values. So why is it that we can't pick this up if we're really doing a good interview? That's a question a lot of people ask. There's a few answers for that. Really, number one is the interview process is really a brief snapshot in time where everyone involved is trying to be at their best. So no one is really seeing what the other person is really like. So you're not able to know what that person is really like once they come to work for you from that process. The second reason is basic human psychology. This is a topic that I'm very passionate about, and I could speak about for days, but we don't have time. So what I'm going to do is give a few of the key findings based on a lot of experimentation and a lot of research. Number one is that all of us have an innate bias towards liking people, a positive bias towards people that are more like ourselves, and a negative bias towards people that are more different from ourselves. So we don't objectively rate people based on that. The second thing is that all of us are constantly filtering our present situation through years and years of past experiences, and this is going on unconsciously. So we're consistently making references in our mind, we're consistently making assumptions, we're consistently making judgments that aren't necessarily accurate because our past is playing into it. There's a number of other reasons in addition, but these are two of the main ones. So this addresses why it's so hard to get a good gauge and understand what someone's like from interviewing them. Now let's talk about reference checking. A lot of people have passion about reference checking. The thing about reference checking is that it has been shown to have very limited value in truly knowing what someone's really like, to the point at which many companies, in fact a pretty high percentage, don't even do reference checking anymore. Question number three is, what are the practical steps to do in implementing an effective assessment process? Let's take a look at this. Step number one is you need to have an objective, repeatable methodology to determine which characteristics are actually critical for success in the position and environment, and which characteristics are not critical for success in your particular environment. The second step is you need to have a quality, accurate assessment tool that measures the innate capabilities and characteristics that people have, which are actually stable over time because they're innate. Otherwise, what you end up doing is measuring things that are not innate and stable, and these things change over time and change depending on the circumstances, so they have limited value. The third step is you need to have a tool that provides information to you that's very easy to understand and apply, both in terms of hiring the person and in terms of managing that person based on that person's characteristics. Question number four is, what are some of the common pitfalls that occur in implementing an effective assessment process? The first pitfall we frequently see is that there's well over 1,000 assessment tools on the market. And we're talking tools and methodologies to assess and understand people. So we really run into a situation of a lot of overwhelm in being able to make a good decision. The second pitfall we frequently see is that many of these tools provide basically generalized feel-good type of information that really has very limited value in being able to determine whether or not to hire the person and how to manage that person when they're aboard in your organization. The third common pitfall we see is that many of the very well-known assessment tools out there were actually developed in the 1940s and 50s and have not kept up with the tremendous advancements in the understanding of psychometrics. The fourth common pitfall is that a lot of experts and consultants are recommending very elaborate and expensive interview methodologies and reference checking methodologies that rarely perform as expected, when a very simple and inexpensive assessment tool could have given you the same information at a fraction of the cost and a fraction of the time and effort. The fifth question is, what is a summary of the benefits to my organization in having an effective assessment process? The first benefit that we see is that by having an effective assessment process, you can just spend your time only interviewing people that you already know have the ability to do the job in your environment, saving you a tremendous amount of wasted time, and also greatly reducing the percentages of bad hires that you make. The second benefit we see is that it allows you to greatly expand the pool of potential candidates for your job. All of us know the best candidate for the job may not have been one of the ones we selected. We didn't like that person's resume, whatever. We didn't want to interview 100 people. But with a very good assessment tool, what that allows us to do is get the benefit of interviewing 10, 15 people while only spending your time with the ones that you know already can do the job in advance. The third benefit is that this allows you to really treat people with respect and dignity. Let's face it, hiring people that are set up to fail in a job is not a very humane and kind thing to do to people. The fourth benefit is that by having really accurate, usable information about people that addresses what they're really like, you can best manage and work with that person. And when future opportunities in your organization open up, you know in advance whether or not that person can accurately and objectively do that job or fail in that job. JumpVine is really a hire and retention partner rather than a traditional recruiting firm. So what we do is, as part of our process, is we objectively assess people for fit based on the innate capabilities and characteristics that directly impact whether they can do your job in your environment or not. And that way our clients only spend their time interviewing people they already know can do the job. And it allows them to have information on how to best work with and manage that person and promote that person. And this saves a tremendous amount of time and effort in the interview process. And it has increased the retention rate of our clients by 300 to 400%. At JumpVine, we take the guesswork out of hiring, resulting in a tremendous reduction in bad hires and an increase in retention. So give us a call. Our website is JumpVine.net. Thank you.